A cold, dark December day. No matter where you live upon the earth, for nearly all of us, December is a month of astronomical extreme. 90% of us live north of the equator, meaning that daylight-wise, most find December the darkest of months, and of course, the higher the number of our latitude, the greater depth of darkness the solstice brings. In December 1920, a child was born just south of 44 degrees north, a latitude that on 12/21 provides a sunrise of 8:03 a.m. and a sunset 7 hours later at 5:03 p.m. My mother, Betty Jean, came into this world on a cold, dark December day, and 88 years later, she passed away on another cold, dark December day. And today, 102 years following her birth, Betty Jean is on my mind. Betty Jean's life was not easy. As a child, my mother was evicted from her home 3 times, and for a short while, she and her brother were placed in an orphanage while my grandmother was institutionalized, a bizarre arrangement that allowed my grandfather to continue working while he faced a very uncertain world without the help of his life mate. Despite her difficulties, my mother strove to rise above her humble station and with fate, taking on the role of a cat playing with a mouse that capriciously allowed her to escape, to rise, and to flourish. I did not pay nearly enough attention to my mother while she was alive. I listened half-heartedly, obeyed her injudiciously, and did as I please. Facts I lament, but cannot change. Of all the times my mother provided anecdotes about her past to her 5 children, I fear I failed to listen far more often than I succeeded. But one short vignette that Betty Jean shared with a tween-age me stuck in my memory. Perhaps it was her telling of the story, a story which held a surprise ending for her, and thereby provided her with a better arc by which to tell her tale. Nearly to the day Mother turned 21, the USA was plunged into World War II. Prior to 1971 and the passing of the 26th Amendment, one had to be 21 years old in order to vote in the USA. So literally, the week of her reaching the age of majority, my nation went to war. In 1941, the societal expectation was for men to be breadwinners and women to be homekeepers, an expectation that was at odds with a nation that found itself in need of 12 million service personnel. Subtracting 12 million mostly male workers from the U.S. economy meant that women in greater numbers than ever before stepped up, filled in, and temporarily replaced men in factories, on farms, and in businesses. And Betty Jean was one of those legendary riveting Rosies. My mother began working for the city government of one of the United States' larger cities, and as time progressed became city manager, an amazing feat performed by a very unassuming but hard-working woman. It was a story my mother shared circa 1972 that I recall now with far more interest than I listened then. Betty Jean told us of her post-WW2 pre-Korean conflict trip to New York City with the girls, a trip where they went to a Manhattan nightclub and watched beautiful women perform song and dance routines. The strong surprise element for Betty Jean, but not for the woman who arranged the outing, was that the girls weren't. They were instead female impersonators, or what we in the 21st century would call a drag show. Mother loved the show and loved the surprise ending, and whatever her very conservative thoughts may have been concerning the appropriateness of men in drag, she felt completely comfortable sharing this with her children aged 6 to 16. The ethos of mid-20th century America was decidedly one of conformity, of majority, of binary, of us v. them, patriarchy, and white supremacy, all tied up with a ribbon that declared a no uncertain and an unforgiving insistence that men are this and must do that, while women are nearly opposite in nature and must eschew masculine and embrace feminine. While I remember the tale, its significance has grown enormously in my mind and heart, especially in light of the hate speech and hate actions taken against BIPOC, LGBTQ, Jews, and other vulnerable minorities. For over 17 centuries, the Bible has been used to pummel, to enslave, to justify, literally burning people alive while declaring that those people are evil, subhuman animals that are property, folk that should not be allowed to marry outside of their race, if at all, and all in the name of love. I've long pondered the misuse of the Bible as a tool of repression and inequality, but of late it's been on my mind more than usual as USA experiences hate speech leading to hate crimes that emanates in no small part from Bible-wielding bigoted bullies hell-bent on forcing their standards on others while screaming that they are doing God's work. The lowest common denominator within civil society is the acceptance that others do not, need not, and will not always share our beliefs, mores, or customs, and allowing those others to live in peace and enjoy the same rights and privileges that the majority takes for granted. If you think that your beliefs, your God, your politics precludes acknowledging that people, ideas, and peaceful actions with which you disagree is guaranteed within the Constitution and laws of the USA, then you and your rejection of civilized society are the problem rather than any type of solution. A thesis with which I'm certain my mother would agree. Happy birthday, Betty G. Know that you taught me better than you could possibly have realized.